All right, everybody, welcome back to Beans No Ball. We're here for the week 3 recap. It's finally here, and Christian, your camera finally works. We're finally not gonna have that issue no
Finally.
more. So, hey, look, the weeks
Oh,
starting to fill out pretty well for us. I mean, except for one key thing for you that obviously we'll get into soon. So let's just get started with the Thursday nighter, man.
yeah, so obviously a nice AFC East AFC East rivalry between the Jets and Patriots, and this time it's finally looking like it's starting to go the Jets' way after all these years of they're getting beat by Brady. Aaron Rodgers, he's starting to get a little bit more comfortable, a little more adjusted into this Jets system. Obviously, he looked a little bit better. Sure, it is the Patriots, not really a big team like that, but this is a rivalry, and from like I said before, the Patriots usually got the best of the Jets here, but Rodgers is starting to look a little bit better for himself, finally getting the pass game more involved. Brees Hall, another great guy in the run game and the pass game. Rodgers tends to have him as a quite such a favorite target there. In the defense, once again, this Jets defense with guys like Sauce Gardner finally holding the way down for against this Patriots offense. And then another guy, Braylon Allen too. It looks like they're gonna start utilizing him with just a little bit more in the run game, kind of take the pressure off Brees Hall. That is one thing I had mentioned before with the way that Braylon Allen performed in week 2. You would expect him in week 3, and that's exactly what I saw there. So we're gonna really see a nice one to punch between the Jets offense with Braylon Allen and Brees Hall. And with Garrett Wilson, sure, might not look like he's getting a lot of production, but he is the main reason why this pass game is getting a little bit more open for the other guys like Mike Williams, who was a little ghost for the first couple games, and then Tyler Conklin, tight end, finally making it really good in the pass game as well. So giving Rodgers a little more options there. And for the Patriots, for Jacoby Brissett, there's a really been horrible execution on the offense there and there. Still don't know about if it's gonna be Brissett or May going to start. Could fact checked on that there.
Think nothing's for certain yet, so can't really say nothing. But I mean, if Brissett's there, he's gonna start.
Yeah, so that's literally a lot of things to look at there. And if Brissett starts to plummet down in play, expect Drake May to come in mid-season.
Yeah, obviously, like you said perfectly, Rodgers starting to look like he's starting to acclimate himself, Didn't expect much out of this team, but, this division, things have been changing, The Jets could be in for some possible contention for the East. Now, moving into the Sunday slate, and I mean, what a way to kick this one off. I mean, Red Zone, right when it started off talking about no returns on kickoffs, the Giants decide to take it out, and a fumble right out the gate. The Browns get it, first play, they get a touchdown, and that was pretty much it for the Browns offensively. I mean, sure, they got the one touchdown that they get the two-pointer on a little later, but I mean, regardless, just a very poor showing for Cleveland once again. I mean, you kind of thought, was that Jacksonville game going to be a get back, kind of get Deshaun back on track? But obviously, we see, it was an ugly one there, and it was just another ugly showing going into this one. Nice to see Amari get in the end zone, but, not much apart from that. And the story of the game here, Malik Neighbors. I mean, what a game. I mean, sure, only 78 yards. You could say something about that, but he's on pace for 1,500 after 3 weeks. Is it time to get a little worried? Is he going to challenge Puka's record from last season? It's too early to say for sure, but I mean, I think my earlier take that he would be a receiver to struggle is definitely looking a little off. He's starting to prove that wrong, and just in general, Daniel Jones, just I mean, I'm playing serviceable once again last week. Obviously, in a loss, had a really good showing, and once again got to lead his team to a win here. And I think one last thing that I had to say, this Giants defense. I mean, sure, it's a very weak Browns offense as we've seen the first 3 weeks, but the addition of Brian Burns, something that I wasn't high on. I didn't think it would have been a difference, but he's definitely showing to be a difference maker on this defense, and got a very big task going into next week that we'll obviously get into on Thursday. But we'll see. As this Giants defense get tested, I mean, they're looking pretty strong just after this game.
Yeah, obviously the bright spot for the Giants, Malik Neighbors, the resurgence is finally there. So Daniel Jones, number one option, is finally getting a really great hold of himself. So obviously with Neighbors, it's gonna really look for the Giants offense, but the Browns still with that offense, looking at their side, still a lot of questions to go for, especially with Deshaun Watson. Now moving with the Packers and the Titans, and Malik Willis, he still continues to show out with the absence of Jordan Love, which is still time to time with Jordan Love. But Malik Willis was doing all of these candidates games to keep the Packers in this game, and this is the Packers game for the whole series. I mean, Malik Willis was really getting the pass game growing. The rush game with Josh Jacobs kind of was very serviceable there. And then getting Emmanuel Wilson involved here and there, he did end up getting a touchdown, which was really good too. So the rush game for Malik Willis, everything's going good. The receivers, Jaden Reed once again getting it done, trying to lead Malik Willis to, and then this defense as well. I mean, sure, it's Titans. Their offense is struggling. Their defense is struggling. This and that. But their defense really showed out against this Will Levis-led offense, and then that's going to be my next point now with Will Levis. I it's been 3 weeks. You can still say it's too early, but he's on a generational run right now with memes and messing up all this time. And this past game, this run game with his Titans offense is not looking too well. I could have been misled, probably a fake tweet, but it looks like the Titans may be in the search in the market right now for a QB. That could be wrong, honestly. Once again, could be fact checked on that. I really got to look into that once again there. But Will Levis, he's really not cutting it for this Titans offense.
I mean, Callahan did say
longer.
they're still riding with him. He's still gonna be their main guy, but we'll maybe just for the future.
With the way they're playing, it's subject to change there. They're 0-3. It's a lot of tough tests to handle there, but other than that, this was just the Packers game all the way there, and really happy for Malik Willis, especially against his old team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he was playing it down, class act from him, but I'm sure deep down, this was a revenge game, and I know he knows that they gave him a shot in the league, but I know this one feels good for Malik, but. Move it into the Bears and the Colts. Colts pulled this one out 21-16. Now, just an ugly quarterback play overall. I mean, look, Ant Rich, I know, we were talking about this earlier, it's getting hard to defend some of these plays. Yeah. I mean, he's making you look bad. Adonai as well, threw up a fat donut in fantasy on this one. But look, I mean, the main takeaway from tonight, I mean, 2 interceptions, not getting into the end zone, obviously looks terrible on Ant Rich, and, a very ugly end zone interception that I just remember watching, and I don't know what the hell he was looking at. Just very poor read from him. And the thing that we think about Ant Rich is hey, yeah, the flashy plays are nice, the 70-yard bombs are great, but he still struggles with these routine plays. He's overthrowing check downs, he's overthrowing 10-yard throws, and it's something that it comes to a point that we're gonna start questioning that. It's hard to keep defending these mistakes that they just keep piling up, and mistakes like this are going to start to hold back this Colts offense, and especially defensively, like we already mentioned, they are missing DeForest Buckner. That defense is already hampered, so stuff's going to start piling up with the Colts. But regardless, a win's a win. Jonathan Taylor stepped up big to close out this win with his 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards, so nice to see him really getting active. And look, for the Bears, like, as much as I like defending Caleb Ben, sure, he had some nice flashes. Odunze and DJ Moore were getting pretty active in this game, but he still looked pretty bad. And I mean, the one thing that I can defend him, like, sure, the offensive play calling from Shaden Waldron's looking pretty bad, and that O-line still holding back. I'm sure we all saw that 4th down play near the goal line to Swift that he ended up going 5 yards back. I mean, it's just looking ugly for the Bears. That defense, it's not going to be able to hold on for long, and it's just they got a pretty tough test against my Rams next week, and we'll see how that defense holds out there.
Yeah, I'm still going to defend Aaron Rich here and there. He's got a lot of raw talent. He's got a lot of adjustments to get used to the system there. Same with Caleb Williams. Still a lot to do for both these quarterbacks and their teams. Now, moving in to probably the shocker, the Texans and the Vikings. Sam Darnold walks away with the victory with 4 touchdowns against this pretty great Texans defense. And then from the get-go, they were just driving. I mean, they had no issue driving down the ball, down the field. It was just easy for Sam Darnold, opening the playbook, getting that field, getting Jettis involved, pretty much getting everyone involved as well. Aaron Jones on the run game is very, very great for this Vikings team. And that defense, they really shut down C.J. Stroud. I mean, that O-line for the Texans, they were struggling. I think the 4 false starts in the row that you pointed out at one point earlier, and then that D-line it was getting to them. It was getting to Stroud. He got sacked multiple times. This O-line was not helping him at all. So this Vikings defense is looking really well as well. Both sides of the ball. It's, phenomenal gameplay from Sam Darnold. But again, the last time Sam Darnold went 3-0 with the Panthers, we saw what happened to that. So obviously, don't want to get my hopes up with this Vikings team, but this is a much very different Vikings team compared to the Panthers team from 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. So not going to get my hopes up there, but I'm really glad for Darnold pulling this off. Finally, the quarterback that they needed for Minnesota while JJ is out. So really pulling it off. Just time to tell to see how they are. And as for the Texans, could just be one of those slump games that CJ Stroud finally got a defense that really gets him. But yeah, CJ Stroud, he's going to bounce back right from this.
Yeah, I mean, we know that scheme that Brian Flores has had, he's been one of the best schemes. That's why he's getting so much attention. So I'm not too worried about CJ. He'll bounce back. But I'm moving into another, weird game schematically with the Eagles and the Saints, very ugly to start. I mean, it was 3-0 in the 4th quarter. That'll tell you all you really need to know. Obviously, Saquon broke that 60-yard run, I believe, to really start, picking up the scoring in this game. But, I mean, look, got to call it how it is. Nick Sirianni, I mean, he was the reason the Eagles weren't getting points. I mean, sure, called the execution from before, but you go for it on 4th down twice in the 2nd quarter, if I'm not wrong, in in or near the red zone. So that's after we see, some probably you could say poor play calling that lost in the game against the Falcons. Something very similar ended up happening here against the Saints, and like we've been saying for a while, the questions are really starting to arise with Sirianni. The fan base is getting fed up, and we'll see what questions come up if they start struggling midseason more. And I mean, like, big things I have to say, Jalen Hurts, I mean, his ball protection is just getting alarming. Obviously, a very ugly end zone interception, very very poor awareness on a fumble, I believe, in like the second or third quarter, and just overall, 26 turnovers since 2023, leads the league, dating back to the start of last season. Starting to become a very big issue. We talk about it with Josh Allen. It's definitely time to start the conversation with Jalen, but I mean, look, a win's a win. It was a very important win, and Saquon showed out, so that's obviously looking good for my pick earlier. And look, as for the Saints, it looks like they're starting to show their true colors. Derek Carr, obviously struggled, and to see that the Saints defense put up, I mean, obviously they won the turnover battle. They played great overall, only allowing 15 points. The offense really has to start picking up the slack, and it's just a really poor showing for the Saints.
Yeah, I will start questioning Jalen Hurts specifically. That's one thing I had. I mean, these turnovers, and look, how much longer is it going to keep where Jalen Hurts is going to keep getting bailed out? Not for long, especially when it comes to playoff time. Again, if the Eagles make the playoffs as well, which is most certain, but I would draw my eyes more on Jalen rather than Sirianni, but really being realistic. That's just my thought on that point there. But now moving on with another big shocker, the Steelers and the Chargers. Justin Fields starting 3-0 with the 2010 win over the Chargers team. Honestly, look, I know you were very high on Justin Fields, and the one thing I talked about last week with Justin Fields coming into this game, he's gonna have to get more involved in the pass game if they want to have a shot at winning this game, and that's exactly what they did. I think he cracked over 200 yards, so that's actually a very good sign to see in the pass game finally getting more involved. The offense finally getting more interested around Justin Fields, getting all these other guys around. And Najee started off a little slow, but started picking her up once again. So the run game is there for Justin Fields. But obviously, look, Justin Fields, we know what he is. He's probably one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the league right now, using his feet. And he was getting up for some first downs, and that was really helping a lot, specifically the Steelers defense. I mean, they were pretty much shutting out the Chargers towards the second half. I mean, Chargers had pretty much leverage all of the first half, but come second half, this was all Steelers game. TJ Watt, that front seven, that secondary was really putting the pressure on that team. But story of this, Justin Herbert, he did leave the game with an injury in the second half. Time will tell how long he's going to be missing, unless they already confirmed and I missed it, which I probably did there. But that's already a huge loss for this Chargers team, especially them starting to look finally a little bit better in this Justin Herbert offense. But other than that, the Steelers team, Justin Fields, really, if he just keeps it up in the pass game, getting a little more comfortable than there, this Steelers team is going to look really scary.
Yeah, as a result of this game, definitely wasn't a surprise to me. I took the Steelers, and this was one of our disagreements, and obviously I'll get into a little more about that later. But moving into the Broncos and the Buccaneers, I mean, this one probably the surprise of the week. Obviously, a 2-0 team losing to an 0-2 team. Now, obviously, the story of this one, Bo Nix. I mean, Carbs, you're out there watching. You hate to see it. Bo Nix, I mean, I'm not going to call this a coming out party, but it was a very nice showing for the rookie here. I mean, I will say, I would like to see a little more on the passing game side of it, but the connection with Cam Sutton, with Courtland Sutton was definitely looking pretty nice. We see some flashes of that, but story of his success was the run game. He did have, I believe, how many was it, 47 rushing yards and the rushing touchdown. So, not someone that I expected to be one of the more mobile quarterbacks going into this week or even around this point of the season, but they're definitely showing some great flashes of what he can bring to this Broncos this Broncos offense. And the defense was obviously looking pretty well, and the other side of this was looking at how the Bucs offense just looked absolutely out of sync. I forget who it was, but they were missing one of their starting O-linemen, and that was noticed in allowing Baker to get sacked 7 times. Very alarming stat to see that. Obviously, it's going to be hard to win games when you're not protecting the quarterback that much. And look, the Bucs defense, we know they looked fine last week without Antoine Winfield. This week was a different story, and just overall, it looks like they got exposed and by an inferior opponent in the Broncos. So, I mean, obviously something that we've been kind of thinking about. This Bucs team, they're decent, they're good, but this isn't a team that really bounces out at you. They were probably a surprise 2-0 team, and I guess a loss like this kind of shows you why.
Yeah, it's still really surprising to me, especially how this Baker-led team was doing good for the first 2 games here, and the Broncos just come in and absolutely wipe them away. Nice coming out party for Bo Nix, but Again, could have just been a fluke. Who knows there? But other than that, for those Bo Nix haters, I know Carbs little. I know he's in shambles about that. Coming to the next surprise, Panthers and the Raiders. Andy freaking Dalton takes in for the bench Bryce Young, and he throws for 3 touchdowns against this Raiders team. This was just a really big surprise to me, and I noticed a lot too. He was attacking midfield a lot. And I think he already had a couple passes where he already, I think already overshadowed Bryce's longest passes of the season, or even of last season as well. So they're really opening up that playbook, and it would make sense. Andy Dalton's a veteran; he's more experienced, so it would make sense for him to, for them to, open up the pass play for him there too. And Chuba Hubbard, another quiet signing there too. He was doing pretty well for this Panthers offense as well, but Andy Dalton, he is the focal point of this offense, and why they came away with this win here. But again, we know the story with Andy Dalton. He could have a great game like this, a bad game like that, another bad game like this. He's inconsistent when it comes to games. We saw that with his tenure with the Saints there. But honestly, this was a nice, really great win for this Panthers team. And as for the Raiders, the quarterback play, it's still going to be an issue there. This Carolina D that didn't look so hot was looking pretty hot against the Raiders. This one, to no surprise there, but whether it's Minshew and O'Connell, there's going to be no quarterback change. I'm pretty sure Minshew is going to stay with the leading role here. But this loss to the Panthers, it's got to be a wake-up call to this Raiders team to see where they're going to move forward with that offense.
Yeah, and it was announced that Minshew will stay the starter. But I do want to just bring it back to what you said. Something that I did want to mention, if I could, about Dalton, really attacking the middle of the field. And that's something that we see, that veteran presence, because we've seen Bryce Young. He's pretty scared to go down the middle, and he kind of, he looks for checkdowns a lot. And I think, we can wait off on actually saying too much about Bryce Young. Hopefully he can learn from what he's seeing with this veteran presence, and hopefully this can help him moving forward. But we'll move it into another. This one was a bloodbath. The Dolphins and the Seahawks. It was 24-3, but you probably wouldn't have been surprised if it was 34-3 or something like that. But it was all Seahawks. And I will say, they're 3-0, but definitely could be fluky. We see the teams that they've played, Dolphins being the best opponent, and they don't even have their starting quarterback. So am I hating because they're in my division? We'll wait and see. It looks a little fluky, but we'll have to wait and see a little more. This defense, Mike Macdonald's defense, that I obviously wasn't too high on going into the season, they're stepping up. They look legit. Obviously one of the big things that for the past 3 years we've known that they're pretty poor against the run game, and specifically in this one, they held Devon Achane completely in check, and that's one of obviously that hurts you in fantasy. But the game plan and the schemes that McDonald's has brought to this this defense has been phenomenal. It's done wonders for them. And look, Geno to DK, it's looking like it's back on track from a couple years ago. This connection. Jason got some action too, probably not as much as you would have wanted, fantasy wise. But yeah, and then on the run game, Charbonnet, in the absence of Kenneth Walker, obviously I lost him on fantasy for this one, but yeah, Charbonnet definitely showed up great with 2 touchdowns. And look, the thing with the Dolphins, there's not much to say, but it's hard to see Thompson starting another game. We already heard that Huntley is probably going to be the starter going into next week. Struggles are going to continue once Tua is out. Season. It's hard to say it's over, but it's looking pretty bleak for Miami.
Yeah, really now you pretty much got everything there. Without Tua, this offense is really not going to function at all. There is Tyreek specifically. I know for fantasy owners like me, we're not going to feast on that. But for the Seahawks, it's looking really nice. The connection to Geno and Metcalf finally start picking up where they left off. Now moving into my game, oh boy, not even going to yap about this one, but again, it's just showing the true colors of the Dallas Cowboys. Was another poor showing. This was the Ravens all the way in the running game. Sure, they almost choked the game, which I'll get into right now, but you realize you have Derrick Henry, and you realize the Cowboys, they suck on the run. So feed Henry, and look what happens. He got multiple TDs on us. He went over 100 yards, same with Lamar Jackson. Lamar didn't even have to pass a lot. He only had to pass for like a little over 10 attempts, and it helped. Most of his yards came from on the run, and that's really all Lamar needed. That's really all he needed for this whole game. Derrick Henry was pretty much putting the load with everything, and we couldn't stop it. No adjustments. Everyone on the sideline was fighting. Micah, D-Lar getting to arguments like you're pointing fingers at each other when you're all to blame here. Especially the secondary, like what the hell was going on? Sure they were holding their own because Lamar wasn't passing, but the run game is really struggling, and the offense. A lot of people were quick to blame Dak, and like, are you watching the game? O-line wasn't blocking. Guyton was getting burned. Literally, Zach Martin too. Out of all people, Terrence Steele, the front seven of the Ravens, they were getting to us. Dak had no time. He had no run game. CeeDee's throwing tantrums on the sideline. All the receivers, they can't get separation at all. We have the lowest separation rate in the league right now into these 3 games. It's just nothing. Aubrey and Dak, they're our MVP. I mean, Aubrey, he sunk the 65-yarder, and Dak, second half. This was all his half. He was bringing this Cowboys team back to life, and for the most part, it happened. If it weren't for those 2 missed point conversions, who knows? We probably would have went away for this without those 2 attempts. But again, there's no in this situation. We had 3 quarters to live up to the expectation against Ravens, and it didn't do it. There's a missed holding call on Michael Parsons from the 3rd down conversion to Zay Flowers. Sure, I'm mad about that. But y'all played like shit the whole game, and Dak Prescott, he's gonna get the blame. And once again, he's taking the bullet for everything. When Dak Prescott was the sole reason why we were in this game. On to New York, I guess.
Yeah, put it perfectly there. I mean, definitely sucks that you had to make the trip all the way down just to see them lose. And just like me last week with the Rams and the Cardinals. So, you know, we're on the same page there. But
yeah, I got my Dak jersey, so I'm satisfied.
Yeah, obviously something big for you there. But yeah, you know, on to my Rams, and definitely a surprise for me. I was not expecting a win here, but I mean, let's get into it. I definitely want to give the props to the 49ers overall. I mean, Jauan Jennings' legacy game to get this started. I mean, 11 receptions, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I mean, he just absolutely torched us in this game. I don't know how we ended up actually pulling it after such a performance like that. And then also minor, but you know, the catch of his life that, you know, when I believe it was Quentin Lake absolutely draped on him, and he still made just an absolutely crazy catch. I mean, he was on one in this game. And Brock Purdy, I mean, it's getting hard to deny his talent. I mean, this game specifically, without his weapons, with all that, I said this on Bean Talk that this was gonna tell us a lot about him, and you know, he showed out. You know, my respect to him. He definitely played a complete game in this one. It is unfortunate that the penalties at the end, and obviously Ronnie Bell in general, you know, this was just a Ronnie Bell sell job for the 49ers. You know, fortunately for them, that's what happened. But fortunately for the Rams, and you know, I'm gonna get into all this right now. You know, very unnecessary penalties in the trenches, both O-line and D-line, that were setting this team back little by little. But I mean, vintage Matt Stafford just, you know, pulling through it regardless. I mean, the return of Alaric Jackson, you know, holding down his blind side was pivotal for Matt Stafford getting these passes out. And look, Kyren Williams pops off right when I trade him in fantasy. You know, it was a dumb trade that I'll look back on soon. But I mean, the production to get out of him, you know, 3 touchdowns from him too. So I mean, I guess that counteracts the Jauan Jennings potential. But yeah, I mean, just a great look offensively, and then look on defense. As much as, you know, the inconsistency, you get pressures but you can't tackle, you know, I didn't like that. But look, Byron Young, someone that I was really looking to break out this season, phenomenal game here. That strip sack was, you know, huge into maintaining this lead. And you know, one last thing, you know, too, you know, it's very nice, it's refreshing to have a kicker that we can actually rely on in Josh Carty, you know, getting us that game winner. It's been so long. I'm getting reminiscent of the days with Greg Zuerlein and Matt Gay, man.
Yeah, honestly, this is a pretty surprising win there. But you know, Ronnie Bell, probably enemy of San Francisco, ran out after that loss. But obviously, it was a really great showing from the Rams team, and Brock Purdy didn't step in up there. But forgot to mention Ayuk. That's the bigger story. Ayuk having absolutely, once again, another shitter there. But who knows? Maybe he wasn't worth the money. But hey, that's for.
And I think I will just mention too, Javon Hargrave out for the season with a torn pec, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously a very huge hit for that Niners defense. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna see how these Niners they're gonna do for these next couple of weeks. Now moving on to the Lions and the Cardinals here. As for the Lions, the run game was going with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, just feeding him. The Cardinals, they could not stop the run, and that was one issue why the Cardinals really couldn't come back in this scenario. I mean, the Cardinals defense, they were getting stops. They were getting stops in the second half against this Lions team to kind of give the offense a little bit more, you know, some overflow to kind of wins in the game. Kyler, for the most part, O-line was blocking. He really didn't have anyone open. Kyler's missing. He's missing a couple passes. I know he had a couple overthrows to Marvin Harrison Jr. as well. Some missed opportunities in the red zone. There's just a lot of missed opportunities for the Cardinals in the red zone specifically, and that's kind of what screwed it up on here. The running game wasn't really showing out as much, unlike the Lions there. But it's great to see Marvin Harrison he's finally getting adjusted there, and it showed in this game. But this is all Lions game. This is all Jared Goff. The pass game, the rush, the defense. They're holding it out for the can. It was a close game, which made it a little bit more tense there. But now the Lions finally bouncing back after this one with Goff's 2 touchdown throws. And look, the Lions defense, I'm not gonna gas him too much there, but from this offense of the Cardinals that seems to be explosive, they really held their own there. And as for Kyler, still gonna defend my boy Kyler. He did all he could as well, but there's got to be a lot of stuff to fix, specifically with that O-line as well.
Yeah, and it's surprising after how phenomenal that O-line looked last week.
Exactly.
It's just any given Sunday. I guess they just had their great game last week, I guess. But yeah. But moving it into the Sunday nighter, I mean, definitely one of the more hyped up games in this week, the Chiefs and the Falcons. And I mean, look, I mean, one main thing I do have to say, this Chiefs team, they don't scare me. I was really expecting Mahomes to have, just, an absolute carry job going into the season. He's just not looking, like the Mahomes that we're used to. We see Jesse Bates once again picking him off. I believe that's 6th or 7th time in his career that he gets him. Obviously, all his time in Denver really had his number, not changing now in Atlanta. And I mean, look, Travis Kelce, what does he have? Like a total 60 something yards on the season. I mean,
he hasn't even cracked 100 yet, I think.
It's his slowest start in his career, and surprisingly enough, it's not really affecting them much. But I mean, look, the one thing I do want to say about the Falcons, a loss like this, it really doesn't worry me. Obviously you're playing the Super Bowl champs. You see Kirk Cousins, he's really starting to look more acclimated. It looks like he's gaining that camaraderie with his weapons. So I think little by little this team's really just starting to look stronger. And look, I know what everyone's going to talk about, that no call on Kyle Pitts on 4th and goal. Yes, it was bad. It was a pretty bad call, but let's also not forget all the ticky-tack calls that the Falcons were getting leading up to that drive. I'm not going to say that has to offset it, but I guess the football gods looked down on this and had to bail out the Chiefs just a little more on this one specifically. But look, I mean, for Mahomes overall, I mean, as much as it was a pretty poor game stats wise, if you want to look stat war, it was a relatively good game. It's not really too alarmed, because regardless of what's going on, I mean, they don't even care how it goes as long as they get into the playoffs, and that's when they make their magic.
Yeah, just another poor officiating game on both sides of the ball. But obviously, everyone's gonna look at on the opposite side of for the Chiefs there. But I mean, come on. Really can't do much when you got the officials on your side, but the Falcons team, like you said, they're gonna bounce back. And now moving in with the doubleheader on the Monday nighter, starting with the blood, just a straight murder scene. The Jaguars and the Bills. Josh Allen capping with 4 passes against the Jaguars team. Here, sure, you can say you want, it's the Jaguars, they suck. But this Bills team, their offensive and their defense, they're looking very scary. This is probably the scariest team in the league right now to look after, the team to beat there. James Cook, Josh Allen, and Shakir. Hey, my guy Coleman, he finally got a touchdown. Didn't really get a big difference, but he finally got a touchdown. This defense, Damar Hamlin, he got a freaking pick, poetry in motion right there. They were just getting to Trevor. They were getting to that O-line. They're just dog pounding that O-line, and really no protection at all. He really couldn't do anything, that defense. Receivers were getting locked up. Just everything. I think Brian Thomas, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, everyone in that court, they couldn't do anything. ETN on the run really couldn't do much either. They were just getting stopped and stopped and stopped. The Bills they kept pounding it in, pause. And, like I said, Josh Allen is the reason the Bills are going to be good this year, and I mentioned it before in the offseason, it's because they're going to be Josh Allen putting his team on his back, and this is exactly what he's doing. So whatever Josh Allen is doing, I could already say he could be possibly a front-runner in the MVP race right now. It's still too early to tell here. But the Bills are 3-0. Still want to wait a couple more games, especially against the top teams, to see how they play it out. And got to go from there. And for the Jaguars, Doug Peterson probably going to be the first coach fired.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put it all on him, but I mean, yeah, his schemes are really looking bad. And, it shouldn't be a surprise to you for Josh Allen to be so far ahead in the MVP conversation, because that was your preseason pick. But we'll see the second of this Monday night doubleheader in the Commanders and the Bengals. And surprise to some, and I guess, it's just the Bengals early season struggles to others. I mean, Jaden Daniels in this game, I mean, this one for sure we can't say absolute breakout party for him. I mean, at first half, first couple quarters, it looked like it was just his mobility out on display. And, we knew Jaden Daniels was going to be a star with his legs, but then we see that, I mean, sure, his first NFL touchdown to go to an O-lineman, how funny is that? But late in the game, the beautiful touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin to, finally ice this game, in all honesty, overall. I mean, just it's a throw I really didn't expect to see out of Jaden Daniels. Or this early on in his career, and just props to him, and just overall just managed this game phenomenally, and obviously just looking the side the way the Bengals look. And just one more thing about the Commanders. I mean, the living fossil himself, Zach Ertz, balling out against this Bengals defense. That's one of the big reasons why we look at Cincinnati as like it's getting kind of panic for them. I mean, sure, I mean the defense, like I'm saying, it was atrocious. The secondary, like I don't want to put too much on it, and it was the Commanders. Like, I'm not gonna like come on just throw all the hate on them, but like you wouldn't expect them to get this burnt up. So I mean, it's really looking alarming for them. And just Joe Burrow, he hasn't been good enough. And I know we saw him and Chase, they look like their connection's still looking good, but apart from that, like, this offense really isn't clicking, and it's getting late early for this team.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I mentioned it before. I knew the Bengals were going to, from our predictions, that they were going to have a decline. And it's looking like this before, but a couple times in the red zone, Bengals did get some calls in their favor that were supposed to go. I mean, no, excuse me. The Commanders did get some calls in their favor that probably could have changed the trajectory of the game for the Bengals there. But again, look, Jaden Daniels is finally getting acclimated with this past game. His connection to Terry is finally starting to build up there. So Commanders, again, like you said, it is the Commanders, but again, don't want to get too carried away.
Of course. And honestly, before we go, that does wrap up our actual recaps. And Christian, next week we get another Monday night doubleheader, so I'm sure you'll be happy about that. But yeah, well, before we go, Christian, horrible week for you. Hate to see 6-10. I was 9-7. Puts me back up 2 on you going into week 4. Let's see how that changes up.
It wasn't my week, bro. Like, Jesus
Christ. 3-0'd you on disagreements. It's been a while since I got to do that.
Jesus.
Yeah, but we'll see how many we get in this week. But yeah, I think that is going to do it for us. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys right back here on Thursday for Bean Talk.